I'm Ted DeHaas, owner of Windy Hill Farm. Welcome to the Handy Horseman. Today, we're going to talk about choosing the right horse. I get a lot of phone calls and a lot of inquiries from people about looking for horses and wanting to buy a horse, and you know, your typical conversation, they all start out the same. Hi, my name's Judy, my name's Susie, I'm 58 years old. I fell off my horse last year, and tells you about all these bones they broke and all the problems they had, and my horse, I can't get along with it, and I'm having troubles, and I just want to have fun. I've worked hard my whole life. I want to have a horse that I can get along with, I can trust. I want to go to the state parks, I want to cowboy shoot, I want to hunter jump, I want to do mounted police work, I want to volunteer with children. The list goes on and on. Well, what happens is these folks go out and they buy a horse that might fit some trainer's criteria of a show horse, or it might fit the conformation criteria of their barn committee, but doesn't have the intellect to do what they want to do. And I think it's important that we address this in a way that we're very practical and very simple about this, where what you have to do is identify what your needs are. Don't worry about your trainer, don't worry about the ladies in the barn, don't worry about what other folks are thinking. You think about what's best for you. And I've had folks that have bought very expensive warm bloods from Europe. One lady in particular I can think of got hurt really bad because that was a horse that wasn't proper for her, didn't meet her need. And she ended up buying a very sweet horse, very nice, very kind, very good horse, very nice lady, very, very nice lady. And that horse and her are living happily ever after. And the warm blood now is off with somebody that can handle that high-powered, high-class horse. And you know, the best way to put it is, if you're going to go to the grocery store, don't drive a dump truck. If you're going to haul gravel, don't take your car. It's the same story. I tell people all the time, ma'am, your horse is trying to take a house dog, like trying to take a house dog hunting. You can't do that. You can't bring a hunting dog in the house. And that's just the best way I can put it where you can understand it. Where you take a horse that's been bred and trained for the show ring, he's been trained on a flat surface, he's got little feet, his muscles and everything are developed for conformation. Well, when they bred those horses for many generations, they didn't really take into consideration any mental status, all right, or their ability to think. Well, you do that over several generations, you end up somewhere where you don't want to go, right? Well, it's the same story. If I want to go to a dressage show, I can't take a horse that's been trained, or not trained, but as far as bred, to pull a wagon or pull a plow. That horse is built differently. He's going to use different muscles to do different things. So he's evolved to do a certain job, a certain purpose. But for the most part, I'll tell you, the workhorse is going to have a good mind, because that horse, if his ancestors didn't get along with the people they were working with, they didn't reproduce. So a lot of people, when they're out trying to buy a horse, the horses that are available, show ring rejects, horses that didn't get along with somebody else, a lot of backyard, half-done horses, a lot of horses that have been kind of kicked around, beat around, forced around, cowboyed a little bit. Well, that road goes nowhere, I can tell you right now. And just take some fatherly advice from me. I will tell you, and I've told 1,000 people this maybe, if you're going to economize, maybe do it somewhere else. You know, there's plenty of ways you can save money, but when it comes to your safety, your children's safety, and the ability to do this in a way find you a horse that's set up for the job that you need to do, and get you a horse that has been handled by horsemen. Money well spent. I've got a saying, it's usually it costs more to go second class in the long run, and many times I've proven that. Now, I'm not inviting you to go out and spend a fortune on some horse that somebody's selling you a bunch of enthusiasm or a bunch of what's not there. No, I'm saying you buy a horse from somebody that has put the time in, somebody that knows how to work, somebody that hasn't made shortcuts. So many times, what I've observed is people, they buy horses or they bring horses for me to trade. They're nice horses. But anymore, a lot of the trainers out there that are charging to do this for people, the trainers are more focused on show ring. Racing around in circles, getting the right lead, cantering. And see, to do this correctly, you got to back up. You got to develop a foundation. You have to do this in a way where that horse enjoys what he's doing, and you're not forcing him, and you're not beating on him, and you're not getting it where he resents to do the exercises that you want to do. So a term that you're going to hear me speak of a lot is suppleness. And that's so important. And another thing that I can't overemphasize, that your horse will never be polite unless you're first polite. You've got to extend that first. You must be polite. Now, there's a big difference between spoiling a horse and letting him be dominant over you and being polite. Polite is move away from pressure, thank you. Give it the pole, thank you. Move off my leg, yield to my seat, thank you. You see people, get over, back up, back, quack, 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 whacking on their horse. Well, that's like encouraging him to do things wrong and to resent what your commands are. If he associates your commands with pain and with force and with fear, then all of a sudden he's not going to want to hear your voice anymore. So, you know, when you're picking a horse out, look in his eye, you know, be around him, walk up to him, take your finger and touch him. And if he moves away from that pressure, that tells you he's been somewhere. Somebody's used him that knows what they're doing. If I walk up to a horse and I put my push on him, say if I go back into my spur place area and I touch that horse and he pushes toward me, well, I can tell you right now, he doesn't know anything. If I walk up to a horse and I put my hands behind his ears on his pole and I give him a little pressure and he throws his nose out at me like this, well, he's going to be that disobedient and a problem when you get on his back, okay? It's not going to change. So when you're evaluating horses, I want you to look in his eye. I want you to look how he carries himself and how he's looking around, how he's looking at you. And another thing, very important, look at the people. If the people that have that horse are people that are full of energy and are kind of rough around the edges and kind of tough and kind of pushy and, you know, get over, back up, back, and everything, you know, they ride their horse like they're driving a skid steer. You know, they're going like this, okay? Now, if you walk out there and a lady, she's got a horse and that horse is supple and giving to her and looking at her and dropping its head to bridle and standing still to mount, now you might have something, okay? But those are hard to find. You know, folks like that are hard to find these days. You know, you got all these folks watching all these instructional videos and things on how to do this. Some folks are getting confused about all that. You know, there's more to it than just wiggling a rope on the ground, and there's more to it than all this kind of clinician round pen stuff. I mean, you got to get on his back. That's our goal. That's the end product. We got to get on his back, and we've got to get him to where he's usable. And we don't want to lunge him for 45 minutes before we get on his back. You know, that's not a problem. And we're going to go over lunging here in the next couple of videos and how our strategy is on that. But for now, what I want to talk about is your attitude. So, when you're picking the right horse, size, color, conformation, background, it's real important. You know, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So here at Windy Hill Farm, we're not into buying rejects. We're not into getting reform cases where we're having to reform some sour horse that somebody else has messed up. I'm not into that. And we've done that in the past, but your percentages are not good. I mean, you can change a horse's basic disposition maybe 10%, 15%. And I mean, there are cases that are miracle cases, and I could tell you 100 of them. But as far as you all are concerned and what you're doing, you got to be careful. If, you know, I say this all the time, if you go to the hardware store and buy a gallon of paint and a brush, that doesn't make you a painter. And I tell the boys here all the time, just because you wear a cowboy hat does not make you a cowboy. Okay? So there are certain things you got to leave up to people that know how to handle these matters. And so if you're in your backyard and if you've got one horse or two horses and you're learning, sometimes it's best to have a horse that can teach you the business. Okay? Where if you get a young green horse that knows little and you're out there experimenting with that horse, I can tell you right now, you have no idea how impressionable you are on that horse. If you let him do things wrong enough, he's going to think that's the right way. And it could take a guy like me a long time to untangle that knot, where it's important to measure twice and cut once, where if you get him started on the wrong track, it's real hard to get him back on the right track. So a lot of the young horses that we work with here, the ones that we've raised here at the farm, I can tell you about my wife's horse in particular. When he was born, I said to my wife, I said, you know what, this is a special horse. His name's Christian. You can go to our website in windyhillfarm.net, and there's a link on there that shows my wife in this whole process, like 90-some videos of conditioning this horse, getting him ready for a competition, a horsemanship competition. But when that horse was born, I told my wife, this is a special horse. I don't want anybody to touch him. Nobody. Me and you. And so we brought him on from a baby that way. From the first time he was led, from every time he had a shot, from every time we wormed him, every time we handled him, we made sure we did everything right. And oh, what a pleasure. And oh, what a treasure he is. Well, he never was allowed to do anything wrong. So I never had to convince him likewise, if that makes sense. Now, he did some things wrong, but he was also shown how to do it right. That doing it right was easier than doing it wrong. So that's complicated, but it's really not. So if you think about it, how there are things as humans, as adults, I mean, I've had people in their 70s come here that still haven't dealt with things that were bad experiences that when they were children. And it's the same way with a horse. If at 2 years old you strap a saddle on him, girth him up tight, jump on his back, you're going to cowbell him around a little bit, bang on him, stomp on him, pound on him a little bit. We're gonna get him up tomorrow, we're gonna do the same thing. But you know what? When he's 8 years old, he's gonna remember that. But if we do that right, when he's 8 years old, he's gonna remember that too. And it's almost like bad habits are learned easier than good habits. And it seems like the bad habits, I don't know, it seems like everything seems to want to run that way. And you got to just manage that and restrict that. So the biggest mistake I see people make is they call and they want color. I want a Palomino. I want a paint horse. No. Let's talk about what your needs are. Let's talk about what you want to do. Well, I want to go to the state park, and I want to trail ride, I want to camp, I want to do this, I want to do that. Well, you know what? I've got a sorrel horse that'll do that for you, but he's not a paint. Well, or they'll call up and they'll say, I have to have a horse 16 hands high. Well, ma'am, I've got one that's 15, 3.5. Oh, nope. My trainer in my barn says I got to have one 16 hands. Well, you know, I think your trainer should be more concerned about your pleasure and safety than meeting some confirmation criteria here. And if your trainer really cared about you, I think that would be a priority. Now, 16 hands is nice, tough order to fill. They get expensive when they get up over 16 hands. So it's hard to match that whole expectation of that confirmation focused or that show ring focused trainer that's like, well, you got to have 16 hands, we got to do this, we got to have that. But we also want him to where he's perfect and he's going to be kind, he's going to do all these things for you. And this is all we want to spend. Well, see, that all doesn't work. The pieces of that puzzle don't fit. So we got to back up and we have to evaluate your horsemanship level. You got to figure out where you're at, what you want to do, and where you're going with this. So what I would do is I would sit down and I would establish priorities. These are the things I want to accomplish. Okay. Now, can you accomplish all that with a half-length pony? Well, maybe so. Well, no, I can't accomplish that with a half-length pony. I have to have a 17 two-hand warm blood. Well, if that be the case, that's expensive to do that. Now, ma'am, if you can settle with a half-length pony that we've spent a year with, that's as sweet as he can be, that will serve you nobly, that will be waiting for you at the gate when you go down to the barn in the morning, well, here he is. So let's try it. Next thing you know, the lady rides a horse 14-2, and she's like, well, he goes along just as good as those big horses. Oh, I've never rode a horse this nice. Oh, he's so smooth. I love him. I'll take him. All right. But here's what happened. That person had really never ridden a broke horse. So size really doesn't matter. That horse was supple. That horse was soft. That horse was trusting and willing. So if he's 14 hands, 15 hands, whatever, you know, height has nothing to do with strength. That little 14-2 halflinger is probably as strong as that 15-2 quarter horse or that 17-hand warm blood. It's just the length of their legs and their ability to maneuver the jumps and different things and heights. I understand all that. But there again, it depends what you want to do. But one of the struggles I've had here is a lot of the people, and including the trainers that come here, I don't really think they've ever ridden a really broke horse that's soft, that will be supple and has been straight in his train to where he bends in both directions and he steps over properly and his brain is connected to his feet. He knows where he's putting his feet down. So important. These folks are just used to racing around some arena and taking their crop and whacking on him when he doesn't do something right. Well, no. I don't want a relationship like that. What I want is I want to think about canter, I want to think about trot, and I want it to happen. And I don't want to have to set him up to get the right lead. I want him to do it naturally and right. But I have to be out of his way to do that. okay? I gotta know what to do too. I've gotta do my job. So that's what's happened here at Windy Hill Farm, is that we've evolved into more of a instructional horsemanship purpose as a horse development purpose, where I have to show the people, I have to introduce the people to horsemanship for them to be able to benefit and get along with what we sell and what we finish. It really bothers me that, you know, maybe we've spent 8 months to a year with the horse, and then he goes off to somewhere, well, they shuffle the deck on him. They change his world. They've got somebody that does something different. They're speaking in a different language. And there's poor old Sweet Pea out there, whatever his name is. He's saying, "No, wait a minute, you guys, this is how we did it over there." And you got him all confused. You shuffled his deck. So I can tell you from my standpoint, I really don't have a lot of troubles. And the troubles that I have is when the people don't want to listen. And they don't want to humble themselves to read a book or to rethink things a little bit. And what I try to tell them is, what I'm telling you is nothing that I invented. We're talking about masters in Europe in the 1700s and 1600s and 1800s that really knew how to handle a horse. This is how they did it. So if you want to disagree with what I'm talking about here, you're going to have to disagree with the masters at the Spanish Riding School or the Hungarian Royal School or the Vaquero riders of 1800s, 1700s. You're going to have to disagree with those guys because that's how we do it, okay? So if you want to take him home and you want to beat on him with a crop and if you want to make him go over jumps non-stop until he doesn't want to do it anymore, go ahead. You've wasted your money and my time, okay? So what we have to do is back up, humble yourself a little bit. Get on the level of this horse. Think about what's happening here. And I'll tell you, if you take that approach, you will spend your money wisely and you will have success. You can buy a horse from anybody you'd like, but you need to approach it in a way where you got your priorities in line. And if you're just out to win blue ribbons, if you're just out for recognition or to win a race, well, how they do that, I do not know. And I really don't want to know. I enjoy the process of how the Spanish Riding School does it, say in Vienna. They bring their horses up, they train them in a certain way over a certain amount of time. They allow those horses to develop themselves mentally and physically in parallel. And they use their horses clear up until they're 25, 30, and 35 years old. And they're sound, they're wonderful. And they're not sticking needles in them, and they're not giving them progesterone shots and mood influencing drugs, and they're not manipulating their feet in wrong angles, and they're shoeing them a special way to do certain things. And they're allowing that horse to be natural, allowing that horse to display its natural beauty. You know, I can tell you a story. We had a donkey here, and I had a little guy that worked for me named Levi. He was a dwarf, 3 foot tall. I said, "Levi, we're going to make that donkey special." Well, Levi and I worked with that donkey quite some time. When we were done, we had that little donkey where he could drive in the dressage pattern. Could do the whole dressage pattern. Stop, back up, step over, figure eights, pirouette. It'd do it all. And just a plain old donkey. Before you know it, here comes a fancy lady that bought that donkey, and now she shows that donkey in fancy riding classes with fancy European horses, and our little donkey does fine. Well, see, that's being a horseman, and that's making something very common special. And that was a great experience for Levi and I, and I'll tell that story a lot. That, you know, like I say, it's not the barn, it's the horse that's in it that counts. But that horsemanship, and that all comes from right here, in your heart. And I can tell you hundreds of stories. I'll get a horse in here. I can think of one came from Texas. Monroe and I rode that horse around one day. I said, Monroe, you don't have to tell me a thing. Those was nice guys where that horse came from. Those guys was operators. Amen. They did a good job. We worked that horse for a while and sold him to a nice lady. Greatest treasure she's got now. A week or two go by, we'll get a horse in, ride him around 10 or 15 minutes. Monroe, I'm going to tell you right now, those are some tough people where that horse comes from. He hates people, and probably for good reason. We got some work to do here. He's a nice horse, but you know what? He hates people. Lays his ears back, won't come to you in the stall. Sometimes that takes a while to get that all worked out. But we can tell a man, we can tell the substance of a man by his horse. So your inner being, your inner self, reflects through your horses. It really does. And that's why when we talk about these matters and we talk about the attitude, which is our next video, horsemanship attitude, right here, you got to condition your heart and you got to get your attitude right to do this in the right way. So get your attitude right, get your priorities right. That's a good place to start. So I invite you to go to our website, windyhillfarm.net. You can notify me through our email address for the Handy Horseman at thehandyhorseman@gmail.com. And another thing that we're doing is we're providing private Skype consultation. So you can notify me at thehandyhorseman@gmail.com, and we'll set you up for a private consultation. And that works very well, and we're happy to do it for you. We're not going to charge a lot for that, but we certainly need our time reimbursed. But that's a good opportunity. If you've got things that you want to work on, and if you want to put together a program, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to help out. The next video is going to be horsemanship attitude.